Right, picking up from our earlier discussion on Parmenides' life and the general context of his work, let's now dive into the heart of Fragment 8. This isn't just a philosophical treatise, it's a bold declaration about reality itself. The text kicks off by saying there's only one more myth left, and this one is about signs. What does that mean? It suggests that Parmenides is about to lay out a fundamental truth, a logos, which will serve as the ultimate signpost for understanding existence. And what kind of existence? One that is ageniton, ungenerated and anolethron imperishable. Forget everything you thought you knew about things coming into being or ceasing to be. Parmenides is setting the stage for a radically static view of reality. He's not talking about a gentle evolution. He's talking about something eternal, unique, tranquil, and without end. Think of it as the universe hitting the pause button on change forever. So, if being is eternal and unchanging, what does that make the world we experience? Parmenides explicitly states it's kekarismin ton esthon, separate from the sensible things. Our everyday world, the stuff we see, touch, hear, smell, taste, that's not the real stuff. That's the realm of appearance, distinct from the true being. Now, here's where it gets really interesting. Parmenides argues this ultimate being cannot have magnitude. It's a mere skydiamus, without parts and indivisible. Imagine trying to measure it, cut it up, or define its edges. You can't. It's not like a rock or a tree, which you can break down into smaller pieces. This being is perfectly whole, complete in itself. Why? Because any part would imply something else outside that part, leading back towards multiplicity and change, which Parmenides has already ruled out. It's the ultimate unity, the indivisible one. Now let's look at how Parmenides reinforces this idea of timelessness. He quotes Melissus, another philosopher, who likely followed Parmenides' line of thought, "When it is, then it is, and it always was and must be." This sounds almost tautological, right? But the power lies in its implications. If being is always was and always will be, then time doesn't apply to it. There's no before or after in its existence. It simply is. Parmenides then connects this to Plato's Timaeus, suggesting that when we say, "it is one and is," referring to this eternal substance, the word is only truly applies in the true logos, the true account or reason. This hints at a deeper connection between logical necessity and metaphysical reality in Parmenides' thought. The eternal being isn't just old, it's timeless, existing outside the flow of time altogether. Parmenides doubles down on the impossibility of origin. He says, "Nor ever was it one, nor will it be, since it is now altogether one continuous." The key phrase here is now altogether one continuous. This present tense is crucial. Because it exists now as a unified whole, asking, "What parentage of it will you look for?" becomes nonsensical. How can something have parents if it's already the entirety of being? It's like asking who the parents of the concept of roundness are. There aren't any. Again, Plato's Timaeus pops up, reinforcing the idea that our perception of time moving towards an eternal being is a mistake. We think things are becoming more perfect, approaching eternity, but Parmenides says, nope, eternity isn't a destination you arrive at, it's the only state there is. Our sense of becoming is just an illusion. This leads us to a core logical argument Parmenides uses, often attributed to Melissus. He reasons, if being came into existence egineto, then before it existed, there must have been nothing ouden. But, can anything come from nothing? Parmenides says, absolutely not. Nothingness has no power to produce anything. It's like asking how silence can sing a song. Therefore, the premise that being came into being leads to an absurdity. The conclusion? Being must be eternal. This isn't just philosophical speculation, it's presented as a rigorous logical deduction. Euripides, the tragedian, echoes this sentiment later, noting that if perishable things dissolved into non-being, everything would have vanished. Parmenides is building a fortress of logic around the idea that non-being is impossible, and therefore cannot be the source of being. Building on that logic, Parmenides tackles the very notion of the generated thing to geneton. Can anything truly become genisthai? He argues no. Here's the reasoning. If something were to become, it would have to transition from non-being meonton to being onton. But Parmenides just showed us that non-being is impossible to conceive of or speak about. Auk estin phaton ud noeton. How can something arise from what cannot even be thought? Furthermore, if it came from being ontos, then it wouldn't be generated but simply already be. So, neither from being nor from non-being can generation occur. The result? Thus becoming has been extinguished and perishing is unheard of. The processes of change we observe are illusions, not real events. They appear to happen, but fundamentally they don't. So if becoming and perishing are illusions, what is left? Parmenides continues the attack. How could what becomes to eon have being? How could it come into being? The answer is still no. If it came to be, egenet, it wouldn't be. If it's going to be meleyesin, it isn't yet aukestin. It's a logical dead end. Therefore, becoming is extinguished, and perishing is unheard of. What about divisibility? Parmenides says, nor is it divisible since it is all alike. If it were divisible, there would need to be parts that are somehow different, more or less in some respect, to allow separation. But since it's uniform, perfectly alike everywhere, there's nothing to divide it by. It's all full of being panamblion estin. The consequence? Therefore it is all united. Being naturally draws near to being because there's no distance, no difference to overcome. It's a perfect self-contained unity. Let's paint a picture of this eternal being based on Parmenides' description. It's akineton, changeless. It's trapped in huge bonds, megalon peras desmon, but these aren't chains of suffering, they're the limits of its perfection. It has no beginning or cessation, anarchanapanustan. Why? Because becoming and perishing have strayed very far away, pushed away by authentic conviction, pistis alethes. This being remains the same and in the same state, hooto kai hootophusis, lying perpetually empedon authemenoi in its own being. What holds it there? Strong necessity, crater and anke. This isn't arbitrary constraint, it's the logical necessity we've been tracing. Being must be this way. It couldn't be otherwise without introducing contradiction or non-being. It's a state of perfect, unchanging stability enforced by the very structure of reality. Parmenides explains why this being is confined within these perfect bounds. It's kept apart, kepte, because it is not lawful that being should be incomplete, ok epideias estin. Being by its nature must be whole and complete. In contrast, not being would lack everything, miondeon pantos edeto. Non-being is inherently defective, lacking all positive attributes. This brings us to a fascinating point about conception. The same thing is for conceiving as is cause of the thought conceived. To truly conceive of being, you need being as the basis. For not without being will you find the cause so as to conceive of it. You can't think about something that doesn't exist in a way that allows for coherent thought. And the ultimate consequence. And time is not nor will be, aut chronos est in he est. Time itself dissolves. If there's no becoming, no change, no sequence, then time, which measures change, has no place in this reality. Here's a striking statement. Another thing alongside being, since this was bound fast by fate to be entire and changeless. Wait, what? Did Parmenides just admit there's something else besides being? Not quite. Let's read carefully. He says this other thing is a name. The implication is that mortals, misunderstanding the true nature of being, create a category of things that are not being. They call this category all things, panta, but Parmenides dismisses it as merely a name, a label applied by humans to the appearances, or perhaps the non-being that surrounds or contrasts with the true being. The true reality is singular, whole, and changeless being. Everything else is just, well, not that, it's a linguistic construct, not a metaphysical category on par with being. Now Parmenides shifts gears dramatically. He says, therewith I put a stop to my reliable discourse and thought about reality. He's acknowledging that what follows isn't the true logos, but rather the deceptive composition of my verse, the myths or appearances that mortals believe in. These mortals, confident that they are real, imagine things coming to be and perishing, being and not being, changing places, altering brightness. But Parmenides offers his own vision of this apparent cosmos. He describes being as perfected in every direction, like the volume of a spherical ball, equally poised in every direction from its center. It's perfectly symmetrical, equally balanced, pales pante. Why? Because it can't be greater or smaller in one aspect than another. Non-being can't interfere to disrupt this balance, and being itself is inviolate, uniform. It's a cosmic sphere, the perfect geometric form embodying its logical perfection. So, what do these mortals believe? Parmenides lays it out. They decided to name two forms, but Parmenides immediately calls this wrong. There should be only one. Humans, lost in error, chose opposites, fire and night, light and darkness. They assigned distinct marks to them, separating them. On one side, they have ethereal fire of flame, phlogus aetherian pure. This represents the bright, active, perhaps divine aspect of the cosmos. But Parmenides is already hinting that this is just one part of the human conceptualization, not the whole truth. He's setting up a contrast between the true, unified being and the fragmented, opposing views of mortals. Continuing with the mortal perspective, Parmenides describes the other opposite, unintelligent night, a dense and heavy body, nictide, pikanon de mata embrithes te. This contrasts sharply with the fire, heavy, dark, perhaps representing the earthly or chaotic elements. Parmenides then summarizes his critique. This order of things I declare to you to be likely in its entirety, in such a way that never shall any mortal outstrip you in practical judgment. He's telling his audience, okay, fine, you believe in this fire and night stuff, fine. Go ahead and live your lives based on that understanding. It might seem plausible, even useful for daily affairs, but it's not the ultimate truth. He's giving them permission to continue with their beliefs while simultaneously asserting their inadequacy, compared to the true logos he's revealed earlier. Fragment 9 seems to be a continuation or elaboration of the cosmology described in Fragment 8, specifically the part about the deceptive composition of my verse. Parmenides promises that if you accept the true logos, you will understand the origins of the celestial bodies and phenomena. You'll grasp the ether's origin, the signs within it, the deeds of the sun's pure torch, the moon's migrations, and the origin of the surrounding heaven. Crucially, he attributes this cosmic order not to chance, but to necessity ananke. Necessity led and chained the heaven to control the stars. This suggests a deterministic, ordered cosmos governed by rational principles, even if that cosmos is ultimately an appearance or a limited aspect of the true being. Fragment 10 directly addresses the question of origin again, but this time focusing on the specific elements of the cosmos mortals perceive: Earth, Sun, Moon, Ether, Galaxy, Olympus, stars, power. The question is stark. How did these things start to come into being, Gymnesthai? Parmenides doesn't provide a traditional cosmogony here. Instead, he implicitly rejects the possibility of their genuine origin through generation. Remember his earlier arguments? Generation requires coming from non-being or being, both impossible. So the question itself is based on a flawed premise. These things didn't truly come into being in the way Parmenides defines being. Their existence is either eternal like the true being or an illusion. Fragment 11 returns to the theme of light and night, the opposites mortals use to categorize reality. Parmenides observes that these have been given all names. People assign names based on their perceived potencies. But his conclusion is striking: all is full of light and invisible night together, both of them equal. Why equal? Because in neither is there nothing. This suggests that both light and night, in the cosmic sense, participate in being. They are aspects of the same underlying reality, balanced against each other, neither truly superior or inferior in terms of their essential nature. It's another way of expressing the symmetry and unity of the true cosmos, contrasting with the mortal tendency to see them as fundamentally opposed. Fragment 12 provides a more detailed picture of this cosmic sphere. The narrower rings are filled with unmixed fire, while the outer rings contain night, though a proportion of flame moves within the night. This creates a dynamic interplay. Central to this system is a divinity, a demon, who governs all things. Her role is to initiate hateful birth and union, sending female to unite with male and male conversely with female. This sounds like a description of procreation, of the cyclical processes of generation and decay that Parmenides earlier dismissed as illusory. But here, it's presented as a necessary function within the ordered cosmos, maintained by a divine force. It's the engine driving the apparent changes and cycles within the spherical framework. Fragment 13 introduces a fascinating twist. Parmenides says, first of all the gods she devised love. This refers to the same governing divinity mentioned in Fragment 12. Love, Eros, is the primordial force she creates. Interestingly, this aligns with Hesiod's theogony, where after chaos, Gaia Earth emerges, and then Eros love. Parmenides seems to borrow this mythological sequence, but infuse it with his own philosophical meaning. Is this love the same as the love of the symposium, the desire that drives beings together? Or is it a more primordial, perhaps chaotic, force responsible for the unions and births that generate the multiplicity and change within the cosmos? It's a tantalizing link between Parmenides' abstract logic and the traditional Greek myths of creation. Finally, fragments 14, 15, and 16 offer brief, evocative descriptions of the moon, likely drawn from Parmenides' poem. Fragment 14 calls it an alien light wandering darkly bright around the earth, emphasizing its otherworldly nature and its path across the sky. Fragment 15 says it ever gazing towards the rays of the sun, highlighting its relationship to the sun. And Fragment 16 notes it rooted in water, perhaps alluding to its mythological origins in the sea, or its reflective, watery appearance. These poetic touches remind us that even as Parmenides constructs a highly abstract metaphysics, He was still observing and reflecting on the natural world, albeit interpreting it through the lens of his radical philosophy. So, wrapping up Fragment 8 and its companions, what's the big takeaway? Parmenides presents a breathtakingly radical vision, a single, eternal, unchanging, indivisible being. Non-being is not just absent, it's logically impossible. The world of change, multiplicity, and apparent becoming is an illusion, a deceptive composition. The cosmos mortals perceive, with its stars, moon, and earth, is either a limited aspect of this being or a product of human misperception. This isn't just a quaint ancient theory, it's a profound challenge to how we understand reality, rooted in meticulous logical reasoning. It forces us to question the very foundations of our experience and knowledge.